One in five suffer.
Erase the stigma.
Brain difference is not a crime.
Mental health isn't just your problem.
It's our problem.
And now, Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave.
Welcome to Mental Health Mondays. We are Marla and Dave Thomas, and happy to be here today for sure, as every Monday. But today we have a very special guest and friend. But before we get started, we always want to remind everybody to please help us, join us by texting GIVE to 818-698-1021 for our Dollar Today campaign, which a dollar today helps keep the stigma away, by all means. And in the meantime, I'm going to turn it over to Dave. Go, Dave. Well, if you guys aren't aware, our guest today is Victor Wooten, just like we promised. He's a 5-time Grammy winner. Hit the world scene back in the 90s. Actually, you guys don't really know. It was before the 90s, because I think he was on tour with us, Take 6, at around 89. So, that was an amazing tour. He's a founding member of the supergroup Bela Fleck and the Flecktones. He's been heralded as the Michael Jordan of the bass, one of the most fearless musicians on the planet. And I've seen him do things that, could knock out his bandmates on stage if they're too close when he's flinging his bass around. Among other things, he comes from a very musical family, and he continues to tour along with his brothers and their band, the Wooten Brothers. He's a loving husband, father of 4, a skilled naturalist and teacher, a published author. And I didn't know this. He's a magician and an acrobat. We have to talk about that.
Wow, that's a lot.
Every major award given to a bass guitarist, including being voted Bassist of the Year in Bass Player Magazine's Readers Poll 3 times, the only person to win it more than once. Come on, y'all. Anyway, he is considered probably the world's greatest bass player. When we come back, we'll be speaking with our friend, Victor Wooten.
When Dave and Marla get together.
Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave and NAMI San Fernando Valley believe it doesn't take much to make life a little better for our neighbors, coworkers, friends, our family members, even our children who suffer with mental illness. When you support our A Dollar Today Keeps the Stigma Away campaign, you are doing your part to erase the stigma surrounding mental illness. For just $1 today, or $1 a day for 1 week, just $7, we can look forward to a future that does not include the unfortunate and uncomfortable stares, bullying, and the subsequent isolation that our loved ones who suffer with brain differences deal with. Text the word GIVE, that's GIVE, to 818-698-1021 to donate. A dollar today keeps the stigma away. Brought to you by Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave and NAMI San Fernando Valley.
Welcome back.
Victor Wooten. Vic, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thank you all. Thank you both for having me here. I'm so honored.
Now, when I was reading
as are we.
I didn't know anything about being a magician and an acrobat. What's up with that?
When I was a kid, I'm kind of still a kid, but when I was a younger kid, I always wanted to be in a circus. And wow. I still love, anything involved with the circus, gymnastics, juggling, magic, tightrope walking, unicycle. I used to practice all that stuff.
Wow.
And so, I didn't get a chance to really do that, but I bring that to the stage, as you was mentioning earlier. I like to do that kind of stuff.
Okay, so now I have to jump in here and say, what an interesting segue. So your passion was the circus, but music has to be a passion especially at the level, and I've seen you guys through the years and know the magic you bring to music. So how did that collide?
Well, I was I was actually born into a musical family. When I was born, my brothers needed a bass player. I'm the youngest of 5 boys, no sisters. And when I was, probably before I was born, my brothers knew they needed a bass player to round out the band. Yeah, true story. So that's all I've really ever done. But I was a normal kid. You know, playing gigs on the weekend was just something we did. I never thought I'd want to do that. I didn't know that could be a profession. But you know, you all might remember when we were younger, once a year they'd have this Circus of the Stars.
Yeah.
You know, you see these famous actors and stuff and doing stuff. But, you know, for me, it was always like I'd see maybe a beautiful woman or a actor sitting on top of an elephant.
Yeah.
And the elephant trainers doing all this stuff and the elephants doing all, you know, tricks, and the person just sitting there getting all the credit.
Yeah.
Like, man, if I ever become famous, I'm going to be in the circus and I'm going to really do stuff.
Right. You're not just going to be a circus prop. You want to be in the circus.
Right. So I learned to juggle, you know, ride unicycles, flip, all that kind of stuff, and never got to join the circus. So I bring the circus to the stage.
I love it.
So
hold on, Marla. Let me just ask this question because another segue just kind of fell into our laps. You're talking about your family. Now, most people don't know. From time to time, I will play the guitar in a Take Six show. But I learned how to play the guitar. I kind of taught myself, but I really didn't understand what I was doing until I spent about 2.5 weeks with your brother, Reggie. He taught me more in 2.5 weeks than I had been trying to learn, you know, from other teachers and everything for years. And it was like, no, man, just watch this. And he was playing 2 strings. And out of that, he then started to explain the theory. He was doing like 2 strings of blues changes all the way up and down the fretboard. And I'm like, man, that's amazing. He said, now all that is just add the notes around it. Now you got the whole fretboard. You stuck trying to play block chords way up here at the neck. Play the whole guitar. Right. Boom. World opened up. And then I remembered that he told me he taught all you guys how to play all your instruments.
Yeah, he taught Joseph and me. So okay. Reggie, from oldest to youngest, Reggie, Roy, Rudy, then Joseph, then me. So Reggie, Roy, and Rudy are all a year or less apart. Mm-hmm. So Reggie's born October 23rd. The next October.
Right. Because he and I had the same birthday.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. I didn't realize that. Well, the next October 13th, Roy's born. So less than a year. The next November 13th, Rudy's born.
So all the R's were fall babies.
That's right.
Wow, so, that's pretty good, Marlon.
Got it. That's like the first team. So
okay.
They're like 2 years apart between the 3 of them, and they some kind of way started playing music together. Started getting interested. So after Rudy, 3 years later, Joseph came. And then 3 years after Joseph, I came. So 8 years between me and Reggie. So when Joseph and I came, Reggie saw the band. He just knew if I can teach Joseph keys, teach Victor the bass, we have a band. And that's what he did.
That's crazy.
Yeah, he started with us right away. And my earliest memory was about 2 years old, remembering Reggie showing me things. And literally, he would build the music around what Joseph and I could do.
Wow.
If I could play one note in time, he would fill in the rest. and he could make anybody sound good. And so by the time I was 5, we're now living in California. I'm maybe not even in kindergarten yet, but we opened for War at the big Memorial Auditorium.
When you're 5 years old, you guys open for War?
Yeah. Wow. I was 5, so Reggie would have only been 13. The oldest. And then right after that, we were the opening band for part of Curtis Mayfield's Superfly tour.
Yeah.
That was in 72.
Wow.
So, the real story there, yes, I was young, but my teacher, Reggie, right? Like, when I'm 2, Reggie's only 10. How many 10-year-olds do we know?
Right, that part.
That's the real story. Someone with the patience, the empathy, the love, the care, the knowledge.
Right.
To not beat up their younger brothers, but to lift up their younger brothers, and to have a band in a few short years that's not just playing little, high school proms. We're just playing major gigs.
You're saying a lot about I can envision, it's almost comedy because I can envision Reggie going to your parents and going, hey, look, we need a harmonica player. So talk to Dad and you need
it's time to get this busy.
You've already listened. These three were born in the fall, and then you and your brother.
And watch this. And this is all coming from a person who's 10 years old or younger.
That's what I'm saying. I can see him. I almost can envision him with a cigar. Like, all right, I need to talk to my parents. The brothers out of the room. Well, mom and dad. That
literally just provides just another perfect segue, and I love it that things are going this organically like this. Because I spent a lot of time talking to Future, your other brother, and I don't know. I'll just explain this for the audience. Future, just as an anecdote, I walked in one day to hook up with Reggie. I'm sitting in the kitchen talking to Future, and Future is writing on the walls on the kitchen. He literally has almost every wall surface in the kitchen covered with equations and stuff. I'm like, man, what is this? He said, it's a new instrument I'm creating. I'm like, what?
So wait, hold on. Hold on. We skipped this. So the three brothers, the R team, then you and your younger brother. So it's and I'm sorry, Victor, your brother right above you. His name is
Joseph.
Joseph. Okay, so Joseph and Victor. Who's Future?
You asking me or Dave? Dave?
I'm asking.
I'm trying to figure out who you're asking to.
Okay,
yeah. What do you have to answer?
Well, okay, so that's Roy, the second born. Roy, the drummer. All my brothers are crazy. Let me just say that. But crazy in the best sense of the word.
Absolutely.
All I mean is they don't think normally, and so Roy is known as Future Man.
Got it. Okay. That's what
he's the drummer. He's the drummer, but he's invented these new ways of playing drums that looks like a guitar from the Star Trek Enterprise holodeck. It's weird looking, but he's playing drums with 10 fingers.
And killing it.
Exactly. So that's what he had his third version was when we opened for Take 6 on you all's tour. That was his third version.
Well, hang on.
He's moved on.
Okay, so hang on. So we're suspended now as we get into this conversation talking about Future and the genius inside the family. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to get into more conversations with Victor.
It's time for the Mental Health Minute with Marla and Dave.
Dave?
You may have heard us extol the values of talk therapy when it comes to maintaining your mental health. Many people, however, may have a difficult time understanding the difference between a psychologist and a therapist when starting their search for professional help.
A psychologist is a therapist, but every therapist isn't a psychologist. Confused? Allow us to clarify. According to BetterHelp.com, psychologists have a degree in psychology and often have taken advanced studies in the same field, including doctorate or PhD study level. They may also research topics that interest them along with their colleagues or faculty for higher education facilities. For faculty, their job is to diagnose patients and clients and determine treatments based on their observations.
Therapists can encompass any number of different professionals, including social work. The term therapist has often been used to encompass social workers and a variety of counselors. Because of this, they may hold a degree in various fields, including an MD, medical doctor, or a PhD, or a master's level degree, or other state issues licenses. A therapist's function is different based on their area of expertise and their level of qualification.
There are therapists who can help you with every aspect of your mental and emotional health. If you or anyone that you know needs help with finding an appropriate talk therapist, please feel free to contact us here at Mental Health Mondays.
This message is brought to you by Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave.
I never do anything without thinking about it first.
Marla is a feeler.
I basically live my personality in my singing.
But when Marlon and Dave get together, it's like a match dancing with a firecracker.
All right, man.
As we promised.
Yeah, go ahead.
Wait,
Marlon.
I got to roll into this immediately. As we promised, we're back with more conversation with Victor Wooten. So, Victor, you've given us a brilliant outline of your musical history and also your family and your brothers. But right before we left to the break, we were talking about your brother, who is also known as Future. And you said these words. You said, my brothers are crazy. And I want to let that be a segue because, we throw that around, but also, as we've had many conversations inside the industry, and we all know of that fine line between genius and difference, which we call it brain difference. So talk to us about what that looks like from the inside with you and your family, because it's extraordinary, to say the least, when we talk about your oldest brother, Reggie, and not only his knowledge and information, but his grasp of it and his ability to disseminate this information as a 10-year-old and adequately teach his siblings. And because it's weird, because as you talk about him, I keep thinking wisdom, and my brain keeps going, oh, then the older crew must have been like 19, 20. And you're talking about a 10-year-old. You guys are all pretty close in age. So talk to me about the emotional mapping and the mentality of your family with all this talent wrapped up. Sure.
Well, for me growing up, it was normal. It's just what it was. I didn't know any different. I knew that I knew that some of the people outside, especially being in public school, I knew that, well, my teachers, and this will sound rude and mean, and I apologize, my teachers, or I should say our teachers to us brothers, were really crazy. And our family was normal. Okay, like my mom, these days it would be called, I guess, psychic.
Right.
Whereas like us boys were always good. We did whatever our parents said, because if we didn't, mama would know about it. Didn't matter where she was. Literally, she could be in another state and something happened, she called home.
Just automatically knew.
Automatically. And I mean, I thought that was normal. Like my brother Roy, when a future man, when he was in, I think he said 3rd grade, and he asked a teacher something about history. And the teacher told him, son, you don't have a history. And so that could beat down most kids. But our home unit and our home schooling spoke louder than anything that happened outside of the house. We were taught to respect people, but we were also taught that people needed to earn our respect. In other words, we weren't taught to just believe our teachers and do what they said because they said it. We were to believe it and do what they said if they were right. And if they weren't right, call mom. She said,
let me hold it right there, Vic, because one of the things that I love about that is it, as a young child, it also gave you agency into your growth and maturing process, and not just become a puppet of whatever the society around you was trying to make you. And the reason why I can say that in the way that I just did is because every time I walked in, I would be sitting there talking to your brother Joe, and he was like, yeah, man, so I got to be careful because my wife, who is also psychic, and he would say something like that, and I'd be like, wait, what? And they would these terms would be thrown around so nonchalantly, as I would think, oh, that's just normal behavior. And I was like, man, when you walked into the Wooten household, it was literally like suspended reality, and you were going into another world. And
so you just hung out in the house.
Theoretical philosophers from the youngest age, ever since I've known each one of you guys. And then I remembered, I can't remember which one of the brothers, whether it was Joe, Reggie, because I'm sure it wasn't you. or maybe Roy, who told me that you had a brother that I thought he said was autistic, but the way he was describing it seemed that way. But he didn't use that term. And so I was like, because the way that you guys viewed your worldview just took differences into not as something that would be stigmatized or less than, but something that added value to your family's package. Absolutely. And I'll leave it at that and let you keep going.
Sure. Our brother Rudy, the middle brother, played saxophone. Unbelievably good.
Yeah.
Just seemed like he was born good from what I hear. I guess, he was born before me, but always at a high level musicianship. And he did, he had some characteristics in his personality that may be considered or diagnosed as autism. It would go through different phases. And it was, so now we're talking, for my awareness, late 70s, 80s, and 90s, where I start to recognize there's something going on. Had no term for it,
right?
But the medication for it started to get better and a little bit better, and we finally, this is going to be now early 90s or so, that we finally got his medication right, where he could kind of, I don't know if these are the right words, but I got to say it with the words that are coming to my mouth right now. He was able to kind of exist normally.
And what Marlon calls the, what is it? What's your term, Marlon, when the normal range of behavior?
Brain balance.
Yeah. So, but he would go through phases of slipping in and out of that normalcy of what we call, where Rudy would go through phases where he would see things that we don't see, the rest of us don't see. And for us, it was like, my mom saw stuff that we couldn't see. Grandma really saw stuff that we couldn't see.
Right.
So it wasn't like it was wrong,
right?
But it wasn't normal. His seemed different,
Okay, so I have a question right quick about that.
Yeah.
Because describing your family, which I love, because you really do give a very clear picture. What was the gateway for you to decide, your family to decide, that Rudy's behavior or Rudy's existence needed supplemental help? Because it seems like if there's nothing, you guys were all brilliant, and it seemed like this was this existence was normal for the Wootens.
Yeah.
What happened where you said, okay, we need to balance this out for helping balance this out?
Well, this is really a question for my mom, who's no longer with us, or Reggie, who, as we got older and we started to move away from home, Reggie kind of became the caretaker as Rudy came to Nashville. But the medication and stuff started before we all moved away. And I have to give the credit to my mother. And again, I'm the youngest one who's kind of watching a little bit from outside and not knowing what's going on the inner workings of all of that. I just know that and this is all a guess kind of, as medication became available, we knew that Rudy needed it.
Okay, well, let's hold it right here, because we're going to take another quick break, and we're going to finish this conversation up as soon as we get right back.
We'll be right back.
All right.
All right, that music is playing, and what you hear means that it is poll time. I will not dance this week like I did last week. Last week someone else did an amazing dance. That's right.
Yes, we had
Emily danced for real. And that was quite shocking, to be honest.
We did. We had a dancing guest.
But last week, the poll question was, what percentage of Americans will meet the criteria for a diagnosable mental health condition at some point in their lifetime? Now, Vic, what you didn't know is that this segment also includes you, our guests. We invite them to take a guess at these poll questions. So again, the poll question is, what percentage of Americans will meet the criteria for a diagnosable mental health condition at some point in their lifetime? Is it 27%, 46%, or 62%? What do you think?
Well, I'll go with what I think in a minute, but I know what it should be is 100%.
Yeah, exactly.
Because to be human, you got to have some kind of condition.
Exactly.
But anyway, I'm gonna go with the higher numbers. What was it? 62.
62%. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right. So, and from that vantage point, that your answer makes a lot of sense, but the actual answer is 46%. Now, I will weight it this way. That was prior to the pandemic. Every number when it comes to mental health has gone up by at least 50% when it comes to the pandemic. So it probably is closer to that 62% at this point. So that was the poll question from last week. Those of you who are waiting in suspense for that answer to be given, there you go. Marla, what's the poll question for this week?
And Vic, you got a chance on this one too. So hang in there. Here we go. If your diet regularly includes highly processed, fried, and sugary foods and drinks, how much higher is your risk of developing depression? 35%, 48%, or 60%?
I'm going with the highest number again, 60.
All right.
Well, now you went.
That type of gambling will pay off.
Listen, you went where you went, Vic, but you're going to have to come on back here and figure out what it is on the next. Well, actually, you have a 2-episoder, so you're going to get your answer. Where you're going to make a lot of people jealous. So, right, we'll deal with this on the next week. But anyway, that is our poll question. And again, we always want to remind everybody, please, text GIVE to 818-698-1021 and help support the show as well as our efforts to erase the stigma. $1 a day keeps the stigma away.
All right, that quick. We are back. And man, time always flies. But Vic, you were telling us about that decision and how you didn't really realize when or that your brother Rudy started taking medication. But I will say this, I would only imagine that as my experience with your family was really personal for a while, but then limited as we became pros and everybody moved their way. We were all doing what we do. But I would imagine that instead of medication, that suddenly somebody would say, oh, just go in the backyard and get some valerian root and crush it up. I mean, that's the kind of thing. I mean, as a matter of fact, I've seen tea being made at the house that I know was grown from herbs in the backyard. So I'm a little concerned about the amount of time that you were intruding on the Wootens at this point. I'm telling you, when I would
I feel like you had a bedroom. I'm like every minute. It's like, well, when I was at the house, there was some
first of all,
grown in the garden.
There probably was an extra room in the house that I could have used. Because by the time I got up to where Reggie was showing me, I had gone up at least 3 stories. So I know there was a room in there for me somewhere. But I'm telling you, when I would go over, I would be more amazed at just the family and the lifestyle and just spend time talking to everybody than even playing music. And then when I would get upstairs, Reggie would say that that is part of the music. And that would be such a perfect statement to come from one of the Wootens. And I'll let you take it from there, Vic.
So you can imagine growing up with 4 older brothers like them.
Yeah.
You got a dose of it going over and learning a little guitar. Imagine sharing a room with Joseph and Rudy.
Wow.
And right on the other side of that wall is Roy and Reggie, and Mom and Dad. So, my dad, I think if I get the numbers right, Dad was one of 14 kids. My mom was one of 13. And those are just the ones. There were more pregnancies that our grandparents had, but those were the ones that lived. Big families. And you know what it was like, well, at least we have an idea what it was like for people of color in the 30s and 40s. So if you get sick, more than likely you couldn't go to the hospital. You had to go outside and find that.
You had to learn how to get better.
Right. So
heal yourself.
They had that ability. I never realized they had that ability until I started studying nature. And a quick story. I went to New Jersey to take a class from this man who was teaching people how to live off the land and all of this stuff. And my mom had read this guy's book, the same book I had read. And so after the class, I was living in Nashville at the time. My mom said, come to my house in Virginia. I want to hear about this class and this man. And so I get to the class. I get to my mom's house, and I slept outside in the woods for the first time in my life.
Wow.
So I get to my mom's house, I'm sniffling a little bit. And I pull up and she see me sniffling. She goes right out to the yard, pulls a limb off a pine tree, gets a big pot, throws it in the pot, and my light bulb went off. I went, wait a minute. I just spent $700.
Wow.
To learn
what your mother, wow.
already knew. I learned that pine needles have 5 times the amount of vitamin C as orange juice, but I paid for it. And then it hit me, wait a minute. So I started asking my mom questions just to find out what else she knew. And then it hit me, of course she knew that stuff. She grew up in the woods. She had to know that stuff. I'm paying for it, learning for pleasure. They had to know this stuff.
Wow, that was survival for them.
Absolutely.
Well, Vic, I hate to say it, but we are out of time for this first episode. And while I would say give us some closing wisdom, everything you say is wisdom, and just being in your presence is ability to absorb wisdom. So we're going to leave it at that for this week. And we'll see you guys next week with the second episode.
Part 2.
And the part 2, the closing of our conversation, the rest of our conversation with Victor Wooten. See you guys next week.